This should work. Okay, so let's see, template must, template parse log. So there'd be an index and a browse. You have those too, didn't you? The two.
Yeah. Those.
Yeah. These functions. Here we go. Okay. Everybody understand this template must? I think I explained that once. Okay, so template parse and parse blob and parse files, all that stuff. It can return an error. And so what template must does is it panics, swallows the error, and just returns the template. So the reason we might want to do that is if there's an error from parsing, that's something that happened because I screwed up as a programmer. And so might as well just throw a panic and die. Okay? Because then I'll see in my console, you know, you left out a closing curly brace or something. I'm like, oh, it's like a compiler error. It's the same kind of error. And so I'd rather get that as soon as possible. And so we use must to say, rather than return errors, just panic on errors when doing this thing. Okay? It just makes this part a little easier. So must, basically, it's what, you know, instead of having to do that and then it's basically doing this, okay? It's doing that for us. That's all must is doing, swallowing the error and panicking on it. And so that way we just return TPLs. But the idea here is that there will be, this will parse all the templates inside of this folder, so we'll make that folder. So in file browser, it's called templates, all like that, all lowercase. And then we'll add HTML files in here. So there'll be an index.html, and that will have something in it. So we'll just put the doc type for now. Oops. Okay, so now we have an index.html. That's this right here. So we parse all those, and then we save that into TPLs, so they're ready to use. And that's a generally good pattern for templates. Is you can parse them as part of the request, but you can also parse them once and then just reuse them. And that's more efficient to do that. Okay. Then we do a handle function. We get a slash, so this will be the index route. So this has a bug. It should be a star request. And it should be a star request. Okay. The reason these are errors is because we're not using it, so we'll just comment that out for now. So we do handle function slash, so slash will go to index, and then slash browse will go to browse. Index is this function. All it does is execute the index HTML, and all browse does is execute browse HTML. Okay? So we're just building the scaffolding, just the architecture of our, and eventually we're going to throw in all the details, right? This is a good, this is sort of going from the front end in. We could also work our way from sort of the back end out, but I think it's easier to think, how does the user use the site, and start there, and then add in the pieces to make it actually work. I find that easier. So, and that is definitely easier if you're used to HTML, because you can sort of start with what you know. Okay, I think there are a couple things we want to change here. So one is this slash here, that's going to catch everything, right? So anything that's not slash browse is going to end up going to the index page. So if I went to slash browse, you know, we have over here slash browse slash folder 1, it's going to go to index in the current. Okay? Right, if I go to this folder, so I click on folder 1, it would end up here. So there's two things we need to change. Well, one is it goes to index. That's not great, right? We want it to go to browse if you go to that folder. So all we have to do is add a slash to the end of browse. And now anything under browse is going to go to browse. The other is that for index, we just need to add to the top of the index. If it's not slash, then do a 404, okay? Not found. Okay, so if the URL path is not equal to slash, so anything else, then do a not found. Make sense? So that's how we, with the default router, if you want to handle the root, but only the root, that's how you do it. Because slash will match everything otherwise. Okay? Does everybody have this the rest of this code here? Any questions about what we're doing so far? This is pretty standard stuff. Okay, so we need to browse HTML. So browse.html. I'm just going to copy what I had here into there. So what I'm going to do is inside of here, this is index. I'm just going to have index, and inside of here, I'm just going to have browse. Just to make sure it's all working like we expect it to, okay? So what I'm going to do is go to here, and go to file browser, and start the server.
Why does that error come up? There are too many pages or whatever.
It monitors not only the files, so it's monitoring the files in here to see when they change, but it not only monitors them, it monitors everything in GoPath. So when you have a lot of stuff in your GoPath, it's going to give you that error. I think there's a thing you can change to make it allow more blockers or whatever. It seems to work, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, so if I go to slash, I get index, and if I go to slash browse, I get browse. So I think that's all working. So I have my basic route set up. Let me close some of this stuff. Okay, so I have the basic routes in here, templates, and the 2 routes. So now we need to fill in the form over here. This is weird pointing with. Did somebody create this form?
We did. I put it in Scratch.
Okay.
You should try that way.
Yeah, that doesn't work for some reason.
Just try dragging it.
Okay. So this is index. Doc type HTML. We'll worry about that later. Actually, the full thing is form method. I don't know if this matters, but label.
You made that capital just because that's pretty much how it is in all documentation everywhere.
Yeah, I don't know if it matters, but it doesn't hurt. Okay. All I did was put some space. In general, you have much more vertical space than you do horizontal. Just like when you're reading a book, it's really hard to read long lines of text. The same is true of code. And so once you have too much on one line, you should really try to break it up. Now this would have been fine, it's just because I have a massive font that it's an issue. But 80 characters is a general guideline for how long a line should be. So if it's longer than that, try to break it up. Because otherwise it's too hard to read. You can't track horizontally. You can track much better vertically. And that's true of regular human text too, like books. So as a rule, when you make a web page, you should also not make it too wide. Okay. Anyway, so I'll have a text area named credentials, and then there's the credentials and the name. Everybody follow this? Did everybody make something similar? So that's going to be our input or index HTML template. So let's see what that looks like. Cool.
That's a good design right there.
Yep. Easy to use. So in our example, this would be a student curve -100-822. If I've now memorized that. Yes. Okay. And then this would be a blob of JSON, which I won't show you, but that would be the file that I told you to get earlier. You'd copy it and paste it into here, okay? And then you'd click submit.
And for people watching this on the video, what would they need to do in order to make that work? They get their JSON file, kind of like we got that credential when we went to App Engine.
Yeah, you go to here, and you click create, and that creates it.
Okay. And then that allows them to access their own bucket on their own App Engine.
Yep. Okay, so now we have that page, and now let's do browse. Browse is in there as well. So we'll just copy that. Just ignore the head for now.
I just figure we'll be listing results out, so I put in a little something to
Yeah.
show where the results are going to go. I
Okay.
didn't get the form in there yet for uploading the file to that one.
Okay. So let's go ahead and add that then. So I'm going to think this is going to be like H1 bucket, and then we'll put a bucket name. Okay. So this doesn't exist yet, but I suspect it will exist. So I'm just going to add it. So I put H1 bucket colon and then bucket. Or if you don't feel like doing that, you can just say, and we'll do it later. Okay, and then there'll be a section for the listing the files. And so that'll be that thing. And then there will be a form at the bottom. So what should this form look like?
Should have a file upload and ink, type, whatever.
Yep. Name equal Okay, so I did this create label file colon, and then input type equal file, and name equal file. And we need to add to the form, inc type equal multipart slash form dash data.
And what's ink type stand for? Enclosure type?
Encoding type?
Encoding type.
Something.
Oh yeah, that's obvious now. That makes sense.
Everybody got this? So that'll be our form at the bottom. So let's look at that. Cool. So when I submit that, it should upload it to this current folder. So I added to this. So I'm just going to add a div around it. Question. I wanted to add something like folder, which would show the current folder you're looking at. Because although it's in the URL, it's not super obvious when it's in the URL. It's better to show it on the page too. And so now it'll have the folder that you're looking at. So it would start out with just slash. You know? And then if you clicked another folder, it'd be slash folder. But otherwise, this will work. This may end up being a table, but a list is fine too. So any questions about this input? This form and all that? Okay, so now we have our two templates, and we need to start hooking things up. So one thing here, where does this upload form go? When I submit it, what happens?
It's going right to the browse page. It goes without an action, it goes to the page it's on.
Yep.
The action becomes the page it's on.
And I think that's probably fine, actually. Because we'll have enough information to know which folder to upload this file to. We can get it out of the URL. So actually, we probably want it to be the current page action. That's great. That's going to make it easy for us. If we didn't do that, if we had if we had action equal slash upload or something, what would we need to do?
Create a new route.
Well, yeah, we'd have to do that, but I think we would have to have a hidden input that described the folder that we came from. so that I would know where to put the file you upload. So it'd be like input type in, name equal folder, value equal, whatever is shown for folder up here. But since we're going to submit to the current page, we can get that out of the URL. We don't have to.
If you were to include the action, it'd be /browse. Or it might, well, it could be anything, right? Because you could be in a variety of pages if we're going to use this at various levels.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool, so you just leave action out no matter which one you're at.
And it'll just be the current page. We do need to add a method post though, okay? But otherwise. So this will submit a form to the current page with the file. Okay, so now we have our index and our browse. So now we need to actually start hooking things up. There's different ways we could start with this. So the user's going to come here, they go /, the first thing they see is this page where they enter their bucket and their credentials. So notice that the bucket and credentials are not part of the URL structure here. So when we come here, it's going to use the current bucket and credentials. So what does that sound like? And well, it's current state.
It sounds like chaos.
It sounds like session, right? So the idea is that this is kind of like a login. And so I put this information in, hit submit, and now my current session is looking at this bucket. Okay? Does it make sense?
Yeah, but if somebody doesn't start a session and they just go to browse the folder, doesn't that go to the previous bucket?
We don't know what bucket to look at. They never submitted one. So that we've already discovered two things. One, we need to remember their bucket and credentials in order to be able to show this page. In order to get this astute curve, whatever, I got to be able to remember what they entered before. The second is that if they've not entered anything, I need to return not found, or redirect, or throw an error. Make sense? Okay. So let's try to start there. We're going to start with doing session. So
when they open the bucket, we'll start a session for them. But we close that session. Does it close the bucket so nobody else can just jump onto that bucket?
So sessions are stored in the user's browser. So you don't share the sessions between users. So if I'm looking at a bucket, that doesn't affect what you're looking at. They're completely independent. So we shouldn't have to worry about that. Now we could add a logout button on the bucket page over here. We could have like a logout like right there or something. But we don't have to do that. So we need session, which is I need to be able to remember what the user entered. Okay? So how do we want to implement session?
Just use the Google App Engine session.
So App Engine doesn't have that.
When I think about sessions, I think about we did HMAC was one, but that became confusing, or we had Gorilla sessions, or now it's like setting our own cookies, or then with App Engine we have the App Engine login, and we get the context, and then we get the username. That's not a session. Session is
Well, but that's all it has is the username and the email. We can't store any other information with that.
But then once we have that, we'll be able to just write a cookie
Yes.
and store stuff.
So two ways we could do this. One is we could require login and then store per email what the bucket and credentials are. I think what would be easier is to not require login, generate a session ID, and store in memcache the bucket and credentials with that session ID, and then write a cookie with the session ID of the user, and we can get the cookie the next time they come back. We'll get the session ID, look it up in memcache, and get the bucket credentials that way, okay? So the process is, the first time they come to the page, if they don't have a session, generate a session ID, okay? When they enter the bucket and credentials, save the bucket and credentials, maybe as JSON or something, into memcache with that session ID as the key. The next time they come to the browse page, pull it back out of memcache. So it's get the session ID from the cookie, then get the bucket and credentials out of memcache with the session ID.
And how will they if they want to go to a different bucket?
They'd either have to manually go to / or we have to add a logout button. Does everybody understand? Okay, so I think the next thing we want to work on is this page. I want to see if we can make setting a cookie with a new session ID and adding this data to Memcache. Okay? So just this section. That's what we'll work on next. Okay? And then we'll work on the next one after that. Any questions?
So just let me talk you through the steps. The user's going to have a cookie. That cookie will have some sort of unique ID. Memcache will have the same unique ID. When we take the unique ID from the cookie, we could say, Memcache, hey, find the whatever value associated with this unique ID, and that'll give us back the credentials. And when we set the cookie, we just say set cookie, or do we have to set it? You said something about email. Do we have to set it with user's email or no? Because if that, then we need the login thing. We could just create a unique number, put that in the cookie, and set it on the user's machine.
That's right.
Okay, so we'd use like UUID for
Yep.
that?
That would work.
Alright.